Hi, I'm FrAnthonyHannon, and this is To Prepare His Way. So, sorry for the delay there. The internet is very slow, and thank you for those who tuned into the live Mass today, the Mass of the Annunciation during the eclipse. So, I'd like to begin, first of all, by talking about my last video, which I took down after about 250 views. So the chances are, if you're watching this early, you get the notifications and you're dedicated to this channel and you saw that video. So I just want to explain why I took that from public view. And and for those who don't know, the last video I was I think 3 potential threats right around the corner or something like that. And the first one I was talking about had to do with the eclipse, which came and went today. And what I was concerned about was a so-called black swan event, bad actors, whether that be government players, three-letter organizations, or even terrorist organizations taking advantage of the situation. And that still could happen. There are some rumors of a particular psyop that that the trigger could be pulled on, but we'll see. We'll see what happens on that. And the basic advice there is to just be prepared. The normal: be prepared for emergencies. Um, Water, food, and shelter for a couple weeks, just in case they pull some nonsense like 2 weeks to flatten the curve or something like that. So that's that. The second item is part of that is why I took that video off of public view, and it has to do with the economy here in Canada, a potential election coming up, having to do with the federal government's budget. This is supposed to be coming out on April the 16th. And then also some things regarding the Bank of Canada. So in that video, I'll just kind of repeat it so that I can go back and kind of explain it. So I'm not hiding anything that I had on that video. I just don't want to be an instrument of fear, and I don't want to be mere speculation if I don't know enough about the topic. So April 16th, a budget is coming out, and every time there's a budget, there is a vote in the House of Commons, and if the budget gets defeated, then it's considered a non-confidence motion, and the government falls, and an election will be in the next month or two, a month and a half, 2 months. So there's always that possibility. Now, the likelihood of the budget failing is very small because, first of all, although the Liberals have a minority government, they are being propped up with a deal with the New Democratic Party. So these are the most left-leaning parties in Canada, if we're going to use the right and left descriptors. I mean, basically socialist, communist, I would say. And one of the reasons there's not going to be besides the NDP are voting lock and step with the Liberals, is that they just recently extended the mandatory election, which for next October 2025, excuse me, two Octobers from now, October 2025. They extended a few days just so that the time between the last election and that election, or the 2 elections before that, so the election before the last and the upcoming one, will be 6 years. And the reason is so that the MPs that were elected 2 elections ago attend this election will get their pensions. So that's very cynical, I know, but there's vested interest in all the MPs to, if they're in that situation, to vote for and support the budget, so that the government, this parliament, we will call it, continues on into late October 2025, so they get their pensions. Now, we will see Conservative members, Conservative Party of Canada members voting against it, but that has a lot to do with them doing, crunching their numbers and realizing that that it's going to pass. So they'll just do some, to be on record, it's voting against it. They'll do that, depending on riding to riding or whatever the Conservative whip does. The Conservative whip is just, the person in the party who rallies the troops and tells them all they got to vote this way or that way. Now, I know that there's a lot of you and myself would be hoping for an early election to kind of end the nightmare of the present government. However, there is a bit of bad news with that if there is an early election, and that is that it seems that the Bank of Canada is intending to accelerate the agenda regarding the CBDC, central bank digital currencies. Now, my source for that is from an interview on Rumble, I think, and I'll see if I can't pull that up and link that in the description or in the comments, or in the so that you can find that. But it's an interview or a discussion between Kevin Johnson and Ron Alder, I think is, or Anders, Ron Anders, I think is the names. And Ron Anders, and let me just double check that. I've got a lot of devices hooked up here, so I should be able to find it. Here we go. Kevin J. Johnson. Sorry, it looks like it's Rob Anders, who's a former member of Parliament. He was instrumental with the Reform Party and then the uniting the Conservatives and the Reform Party for the new Conservative Party of Canada. Back in the day, he retired from Parliament in 2015, and it's Rob Anders who's kind of speaking as the authority on this regarding the Bank of Canada wanting to accelerate the agenda with the CBDCs. Now, I did hear the governor of the Bank of Canada several months ago saying that cash is going to be around for a long time, so it's not, doesn't look like it's going to be 100%. But yeah, my thought on all this is let's just make sure we keep using cash, because for a lot of different reasons why we don't want CBDC, digital ID, all of that stuff, and but not the least of it would be because it punishes the poor so badly. Without cash, I mean, there's so many poor and a certain percentage of Canadians that are not on the internet, don't do electronic banking or anything like that. They're old school, elderly, and CBDCs are bad for all sorts of reasons, but including those reasons. So that was part of it. And then that I'm not exactly sure on. I mean, I don't know, what does the Bank of Canada do? It's going to do. It's going to raise interest rates, lower interest rates, keep them the same. I don't know. It is speculation. So that was one thing. But like I say, it's possible threats. But the next part has to do with June 30th, 2025. And that has to do with the Canada Bank Act and the chartered banks, and that my understanding is that Rob Anders was explaining that on June 30th, 2025, the chartered banks could be no longer. And you have to look at that video, which I'll link shortly. Just just because I could be misinterpreting things as well, but basically he's saying if the government doesn't do anything, then the charter banks aren't under regulation anymore, and this could again accelerate the CBDCs, just lining up all the ducks. And that again, that could very well be, but I since did a little bit more digging and found out that this has to do with Section 21 of the Canada Bank Act, and that this has to do with the regulations of chartered banks, yes, but and there are implications there with regards to insurance of depositors and all of this type of thing. But apparently, this is an ongoing thing. It always gets renewed every 4 or 5 years, and so it's kind of nothing new. But Rob Anders is saying, hey, this could be the time that they're not going to renew it, and just to again open the door to the CBDC. So, but since I'm not exactly sure on that, I said, you know what, I'm going to take that off. Also, one of my early comments on that video is someone I've never seen comment on my videos before, so I was taking it with a little bit of grain of salt. And plus, I give a lot more credence to commenters that leave their name, their real name, instead of a pseudonym, and because often I'll go and check their channel and I find out, oh, they're a relatively new channel, they've got no subscribers, no video content, and I have no idea who they are, and it's a pseudonym. Nonetheless, someone left an early comment, probably not watching the video, and it was a very sarcastic comment about fear, and I'm like, no, that my point with any of my videos is not to be fearful, but yes, give a heads up and do what we can. And I explain with various problems that are either on the geopolitical level, local politics, or within the Holy Catholic Church. And there's a lot of problems and things that come up, and most of my videos are trying to offer to anyone who would view them how I deal with it, how I cope with it, how I move on with my life, and not get all wrapped up and paralyzed by fear. So there you go. Anyway, yeah, so the third part of that video that I took off public view, I'd like to talk tonight about and focus on that and go into detail, and that has to do with immigration, migrants, illegal or otherwise, into Canada, into the United States, into Europe, indeed, I think all the first world countries. And many of us are looking at this and looking at the big picture and seeing that this is ultimately, whatever the intentions are, and we tend to be a little bit distrustful and cynical these days, but whatever the intentions are, the result will be a population replacement and a culture replacement. Now, this has been on my radar for a long time, well over 10 years, and I am being concerned about the Canada that I grew up in, the Canada that is becoming. And I, quite frankly, I thought that the immigration policies and where so many immigrants were coming in was going to be a replacement of our culture through democracy, and that it would eventually be, and maybe long after I'm dead, but maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now, but that it would become a culture based on Sharia law or something like that. That was very much my concern. I don't see it exactly like that now, but kind of. It is still on the radar. I am more concerned about possible communists coming into Canada, and many people make the observation that so many of the newcomers to our countries are of military age men, and so this is obviously a concern. I'd like to offer a little bit of actually what I think is the solution: how to thwart the agenda, and I put in the title "By Obedience." So just hang in there for a second while I try to try to make sense of that for you and explain what I mean by that. Of course, if you saw that video that I took off public view, you might already have an indication of what that is. So when someone says military age men, the implication is that it's some sort of a Trojan horse, that this is not really simple migration, but is really an invasion. And by using that phrase, like military age men, the idea is, and I guess the fear is, that there could be some sort of bloodshed, hot war, civil war in our countries. And of course, we don't want that, do we? No one wants that. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, and I don't think that bloodshed is necessary for the culture, the Canada that I grew up in, to be completely lost, and a complete change in basic culture here. Because if we are voting countries, so-called democracies or quasi-democracies, it's just a matter of voting and voting the culture. But politics is downstream from culture, and the reality is that every culture has good things and bad things, and that includes the culture that I grew up and the cultures of Canada and the United States, even the kind of the foundational or fundamental cultures that we have. And for many years, Canadians would kind of criticize the government, yes, but also criticize the newcomers for not assimilating into Canadian culture. Now we blame the government because the government is not properly vetting, and the history of our country in terms of immigrants is mostly from Europeans, and Christian backgrounds, either Catholic or Protestant, for the most part. And because of a number of political policies having to do with, what should we say, political correctness and whatnot, there's kind of like non-discrimination, and I don't think that's very wise. And a number of years ago, I may have shared this story on one of my live streams at one time, but a number of years ago, I remember meeting this young fellow in a Walmart parking lot on a summer evening. This would have been definitely before 2018, because that's when I left parish ministry, and I know I was at the parish in the village south of Ottawa at the time. So it's down at the South Keys Walmart parking lot, And I was just, whatever, I had my dog with me. I was feeding my dog, whatever. And I was parked right beside this, really stunning tow truck, a brand new white tow truck. Um, and while I was feeding my dog, this fellow comes up, and it's his truck. I said, "Oh, is that your truck?" He says, "Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's an amazing truck." And we just, you know, we just started talking, as I'm apt to do when I'm out and about, and we're talking and about this, that, or the other thing. And just to get to the point about this, after some time of talking, he opened up with a few little personal things, and he's a married man, and like I say, I'm guessing he's like 30 years old, something like that. And he tells me that he's married and that he has a young daughter of, I don't know, very very young, maybe a year old or something like that. And but then he shares with me that he's heartbroken and he doesn't know what to do because his wife, and it was an arranged marriage, and I have nothing against arranged marriages. I definitely think they can work, but it's arranged marriage, and she came from the Middle East. Now he was born in the Middle East, but he came to Canada when he was about 10 years old. He told me, and so he says I'm thoroughly Canadian, and he certainly didn't have any accent or anything like that. He loved being in Canada, but after their daughter was born, they went to the Middle East to, for visit of relatives and to show off the baby and all that stuff. And after a couple weeks, it was time for them to come back, 2 or 3 weeks, and he was ready to go off in the taxi or whatever was going on, and like, where's his wife and daughter? So some of the relatives came and said, actually, she's not going back to Canada. And yeah, this this was terrible. This guy is heartbroken. Now, they come from Muslim culture, and when they got married, she moved to Canada, and the problem is she was unable to learn English or French. She only spoke Arabic, and she, really didn't make any friends. So you can understand from her perspective why she didn't want to come back to Canada. But see, so many of us Canadians, we blame the new people, and we could blame uh, her husband or something for not assimilating. And I don't know how traditional, his wife was or whatever, but because I think it is hard for grown Muslim women who wear hijab to make Canadian friends. I think it is definitely difficult for them. But also the Canadian policies of, unlike in the United States, which my understanding is supposed to be like a melting pot. And yes, you can have, kind of hyphenated Americans, but ultimately you're all American. In Canada, there's been policy of trying to encourage multiculturalism. So what ends up happening is they really have no need to enter into Canadian society, the wider Canadian society, because they can function within their own communities from whatever country they came from, whatever language they speak. But anyway, obviously, this man's wife, uh, you know, wasn't comfortable with that, and that was the situation they were in. Now, my thing is, can we really blame the newcomers? I mean, let me put it another way. Let me put it on maybe an even more serious level, and that is from my Catholic faith perspective. Because here in Canada, for decades and decades, we've had people coming from all over the world into Canada, non-Christian, non-Catholic, and we have utterly failed to bring the good news to them and gain converts. Uh, you know, the numbers don't lie. I mean, think of the missionaries of old who would go to, you know, countries that you know weren't living the gospel or had never heard the gospel, and some of the saints who converted, you know, people by the thousands. Well, we don't have to be missionaries and go out to the four corners of the world because the whole world was coming to us. Yet, at every Easter vigil, you know, where kind of the norm is that adults would come into the Catholic Church, baptized, or if they're already baptized, into full communion, receive confirmation and First Holy Communion by professing the Catholic faith. You look at any parish, even huge parishes, we're not having 100 people lined up, one or two or three, and many of those met someone who is Catholic, and they want to be married to them, and so it's not like they're necessarily converting because, you know, coming into the Catholic Church because, you know, they had a conversion experience. Now through the RCIA and everything, I'm not saying that they don't believe, but you know, it's kind of not the same. It's almost like for pragmatic purposes. So we've failed. As far as, you know, general Canadian population, including as Catholics, we've got this custom, and this is a bad thing in our well, it's good and bad, but I think we need to be more flexible, and I think we can improve in this. But we have this kind of custom or practice that we show people respect by leaving them alone and not talking to them. And that's, I mean, it may change from region to region in a way, and neighborhood to neighborhood, but in general, that's a very Canadian thing. I think maybe in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, it may be a little bit different. That's just my personal experience. In those provinces where, you know, I just found that the people were so hospitable, just so friendly. And you know, I would include the other eastern provinces as well in general. But you know, us Canadians as a whole, we do pride ourselves as being kind of nice people, polite, courteous, um, you know, good people, honest people. We do kind of pride ourselves on that. And but we also like mind our own business, and it's, I guess it's kind of the golden rule. We want others to leave us alone, so we leave others alone. I mean, look at me. I live like a hermit. I asked my bishop if I could, you know, live in more solitude, because, you know, that was being drawn to that. So I love that. But out here, I do try to get to know my neighbors, at least meet them, introduce myself to them. I mean, everyone knows, everyone on this whole road that I live on knows, you know, that I'm a Catholic. There's a Catholic priest here. I'm the only one with a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary on the, you know, on the front lawn, right? And people talk, and that's it. So I mean, some people, you know, coming here, um, it's in some way it's easy to get lost, and so a number of individuals, first time they come here, they're driving and they're looking at the numbers of the road and they get confused, so they stop at someone's house and knock on the door and say, "Do you know where the Catholic priest is?" "Oh yeah, I maybe never met them." They all know where I am. They say, "Oh yeah, he's down there." But no, when I'm walking my dog and whatnot, I really, if there's someone outside, I wave to them. I say, "Hi, how's it going?" And I introduce myself to them. If they have dogs, which most of them do, I say, "Can I let my dog loose?" They go say hello to your dog, and we strike up a conversation. I get to know them. Well, you know, so so one set of neighbors, when they first moved in, they're about a kilometer away from me. I went up to them and introduced myself to them, and so I know their names and da 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 da. So, and I mean, I haven't really talked to them very much since then, but you know, at least we had an introduction. So I don't know, like a couple years later, I'm walking and I meet their next door neighbor, which is, I don't know, maybe, well, it's a quarter of a kilometer away, like at 250 meters or something away. You can see their house. And, from these new people that moved in. Anyway, so I meet these people I've never met before. They've been here for years and years and years. And, grew up here as kids and everything. And so in conversation, I said, "Oh, how's so and so and so and so?" And the response was, "Oh, that's their name." Like their next door neighbors have been there for 2 years. They've never met them. And that's like a very Canadian thing. And we don't really have a problem with that. But I'm telling you that a lot of people who are new coming into Canada, they're coming from a culture where that is so foreign. They're coming from a culture where if someone new moves into the neighborhood, the neighbors go over, introduce themselves, bring them food, maybe bring them food for a whole week, introduce them to the other neighbors, show them around, and see however they can help them. So unfortunately, even though newcomers to Canada will find, Canadians, not to be bad people, some of them feel a little bit rejected from us, like we don't care about them. And, this is not good. That's not a good thing about our culture. So here's what I've been doing, and I just say it, and maybe it will inspire anyone who might see these videos maybe to do something similar in your own way. But when I'm out and about and I meet someone, because a lot of the newcomers to Canada are taking jobs at fast food restaurants or some of the retail stores that they can't find employees and willing to work, and or at the gas station and convenience store setup. And so what I do, providing I have the time, which is a lot of time I do, I make the time, and provide him in the right mood, which most of the time I'm in the right mood. When I detect someone with an foreign accent, I'll say to them, "Hey, I detect an accent. Are you new to Canada or whatever? Where are you from?" And before that, I've already struck up a conversation with them in terms of it's a nice day out, or it's raining, or the price of gas came down again, or went up again, or whatever the case may be. It's easy to have a little bit of a conversation with someone. And I hear an accent, so I say, "Oh, how long you been in Canada?" Now, sometimes I get caught off guard, and they say, "Oh, 20 years." Oh, never mind. Never mind. But, I've met some from India recently, lot from India, and some of them come over as students. And there is this controversy in Canada right now about various scams going on. But whatever the case, they take these jobs like that most Canadians don't want, like young Canadian teenagers or young adults. They don't want those jobs. So employers have a hard time finding help, so they take them jobs. I'm like, good for them. But yeah, so I met these two guys at a gas station, and they're both from India, and one's working behind the counter, another guy's waiting, like changing his shift or something, like whatever. And so I said, "How long you been in Canada?" And, "Oh, 2 years." So anyway, I say to them, but I hear sometimes like 2 months or something, right? And but I always ask them this question, or I usually ask them this question: Have you made any Canadian-born friends yet? And most of the time they say no. Now I did meet a fellow, I think he was from Sri Lanka. He'd been in Canada for 5 years, and he was working at Home Depot, and he told me, "Well, at first it did take a long time, but since I got the job at Home Depot, I've made a number of friends because there's a lot of employees at Home Depot, and there's some young people, some people his age, and you know, like when I was younger, there's some who want to have a party, and they invite everyone that they work with. Or they these larger places like Home Depot and whatnot, I'm sure they have, like softball teams or whatever. I was talking to someone recently who was on the Costco volleyball team or something, like, not team, but league, you know. So they become kind of like cultures within their own. So I was very happy that that guy was meeting some other Canadians, and I did meet, like, not far from here, like Sherbert Lake, the restaurant up there, where there's a whole bunch of newcomers to Canada working. And I went up last fall when the Toronto Blue Jays were in the wild card, and I went up there thinking maybe I could watch the game up there because I don't have access to watch it here, and they happened to be closed on that evening. Yeah, and but while I was up there, I started talking to some of the employees because it's kind of a restaurant and motel, and they're housed there as well. And I started talking to them because I'd been to lunch there a couple of times, and they always say, "Oh, hi, Father." They're very very polite and everything. And lo and behold, one of the kitchen staff, who's Canadian, he's a cook or a dishwasher or something, he was coming and he was picking them up, and they were going to a bar in a nearby village in Westport, I think, where there was a live band playing. And I'm like, yeah, that's excellent. That's so good of this guy. And when I was talking to him, he's just very friendly, and he's like, yeah, I want to show these guys around, and that's awesome. So anyway, when I start talking to these people, and these two Indians at this gas station, they're like they've been here for 2 years. Have you made any Canadian friends? And they're like, no, no, no. And I I'm like, well, uh, I want to explain something to you. And I explained to them what I just did, on this video here, where, Canadians, we have this kind of practice. It's not a good thing, but we show respect for people by leaving them alone. So it's different from the culture that you came from, but, because they'll talk to me about that. And although in India, they said it depends. If it's in the city, it's very much like here. But if it's in the rural, it's people are more friendly for sure. Back in India, but in a big city, yeah, a lot of people, they're too busy, they don't want to talk to you or whatever like that. So I guess it's the same in every city, probably around the world. But um, anyway, uh, I explained to them. I said, like, we're not rejecting you, like that's the thing. And the way I handle it is because I'm like, well, like I would like, doesn't matter who it is, whether they're newcomers to Canada or not. If I strike up a conversation with someone and I think they're not going to be hostile to the messages that I might have, and we're having a good conversation, I'll say, look, I have a YouTube channel, and here it is. And a lot of times, oh, they're very excited about it. They subscribe right away when I show it to them. And I say, yeah, just check out some of the videos. And if you don't think I'm like a crazy guy, feel free to reach out to me. Some of my videos have my email address in the description, and you can yeah, reach out to me, send me an email, come visit me, whatever. In other words, I treat them like I would anybody else. Like a lot of people in the freedom movement, I say, look, come visit me. I'll show you around. And some have, and I'm really, really happy about that, because I like to make new friends. And even though I'm out here, I'm living in solitude, and I want that, and I need that, and I get my batteries recharged, which is one of the reasons when I do go out in public, I'm eager to meet people, because I'm alone here most of the time. But that's kind of the way I handle it. And like I was invited to go to a Ottawa Senators hockey game there a few weeks ago, and this was from one of my brother priests. He called me up on a Friday morning and said one of the priests was given 4 tickets, and we've got a ticket. Do you want to go? And I said, well, can I get back to you like in about an hour or so? He said, yeah, no problem. It was early in the morning. And I just was trying to think logistically how I was able to do it, because I've got my dog, and it's, the drive and the parking and everything like that. And they wanted me to go down to the parish like, I don't know, an hour and a half before the game started. No, an hour 45 minutes, I think, before the game started, because they're going to go up really early, watch the practice and everything like that. And I'm like, so I call back and said, look, I don't think I can do it. I can't leave my dog alone for that long, or in my truck for that long, or whatever. And but around 4 o'clock, it was just kind of nagging at me, kind of like the same with the freedom rallies and the truckers convoy, where it was just kind of building up in me, kind of like, so maybe it was the Holy Spirit. I suspend judgment on that, because I never want to say, unless the Lord really told me. I don't want to ever say the Lord prompted me to do this. But it was very much, I would say, an inspiration, in the sense of, I would like an aspiration, we could say, of going, and not only because I do like sports, and I like hockey, although I haven't followed the NHL very much in the last few years. As a matter of fact, when I did go to the game around 4 o'clock, I phoned the priest back and I said, look, this is kind of nagging on me. Do you still have the ticket available? He said, yeah, we still do. I said, okay, I think I'm going to go. And we had to do some, juggling a little bit, and the priest who got the tickets, because it's all electronic now. It's totally cashless at the where the Ottawa Senators play hockey, and at the Canadian Tire Center, they call it. It's so I didn't want to go because of that, because it's like playing into the agenda. But I just thought to myself, no, this is a group of people that I know I'll be able to make some connections with, and I might not see much. That, many of them, they may not go to freedom rallies or to church or wherever, right? So so anyway, I was able to do that, and I went down, and I wore my cassock, because I wanted everyone to know that I'm a priest. Now, I've gone to other hockey games before with my collar, and walk around the intermission. And I remember back around 2017 or so, going to a game and bringing one of my parishioners, and he was aghast at how, when we went in intermission, you see all the crowds, and how people would see me 20 feet away, and then they would or 10 feet away, and they look away. And I guess it's also kind of a Canadian thing, maybe, like when crowds, like even in Costco, no one looks at each other. It's really pathetic. But I didn't have a beard then, so you could see my collar and everything. But now I got this beard, so I'm just a guy who dresses in black with a beard. So I wanted to be an ambassador for Christ. I'm very conscious of that, very aware of that. So I go on and met a whole bunch of people because I was wearing the cassock. But my brother priests, like, I think one of them wasn't wearing his collar. Another one was. The other one, I'm not sure. They were all wearing winter jackets. It was only like -2 or something outside, and it wasn't snowing or anything. I think they might have been calling for freezing rain or snow later, but I was like, whatever, a few hundred yards from where I parked. So I didn't wear a jacket or anything. I just wear my cassock. But these guys, they're in busy parishes and whatnot, so they're always in the public light. They're always ministering, and so for them, the going to a hockey game is really like a night off. It's really, so I don't give them for not being obviously visible as priests. They wouldn't hide it from anybody, and some of the, like, probably the ones who aren't wearing collars, they probably would still run into parishioners or something, because they would still recognize them. It's not like they're completely anonymous, but just strangers, they wouldn't know. So but like I say, they don't, for them, that's a break. But for me, it's like an opportunity to meet people and to evangelize and be an ambassador for Christ. So so with the newcomers, and this is getting to the title of this live stream, thwarting the agenda by obedience. Thwarting the agenda. What agenda? The depopulation, the replacement population, the culture, the powers that ought not to be, we'll say, or the elites or whatever, oligarchs or whoever is pulling the strings. if you're watching my videos, you know the agenda 2030, WEF, all that other stuff. We know it's a ABCD, population, agenda, and a transfer of wealth. It's a destroying of our economies, so they can bring in a new type of economy, which I've alluded to earlier in this video. And we don't want any of that stuff. We don't want any of that stuff. Look, on a political level, a political solution, because we've got too many new people coming into our countries too fast and unvetted. That is a problem. And on the political level, we ought to be talking to our MPs, doing what we can, to stop these policies that are changing our country. I mean, the reality is we need immigration in our countries because our birth rate has been pathetic for a few generations now. It's been pathetic, and we've got high standard of living. We've had a high standard of living, and the only way to keep that going is to keep the population growing. And especially like here in Canada, where we're so socialized, and Canada pension plan and all that type of thing, like everyone, if we don't have new people coming in, there will be no economy for, there will be no CPP, Canadian pension plan. There will not be. Now the reality is the government, along with like in Canada and United States and all the first world countries, we see it, Australia, New Zealand, all the whole part of the plan of the scamdemic and everything like that, that is to destroy they're on the same page, and they have destroyed the economy already. And we're seeing inflation, and here in Canada, the big news now is protesting against the carbon tax, the increase in carbon tax. Look, yeah, that's bad. It does add to inflation, add to the cost of everything, no doubt about it. But it's just a drop in the bucket to what they've spent. Like, in my opinion, there should be no tax right now, because when I was a teenager, there was no government gambling, government-run gambling. You could have a bingo for charities or a lottery, raffles or something for charities, but with a special license or permit. But there was nothing like we see now. And I remember when I was a teenager, I might have been grade 9, 1976 or something like that, and they introduced Wintario, which is the province of Ontario, and I think it was $100,000, $1 a ticket. And it was such a novel thing, and they started introducing it as like once a month and maybe once a week or something. It was $1 a ticket, and it was such a novelty that neighbors they would get together, like my parents and other neighbors, and we'd watch in front of the TV the balls coming down, the numbers coming down, and it was like a 649 type of thing. But now there's so many lotteries, and the government's taking in so much money, there shouldn't be any taxes at all. But because they've spent money, mismanaged everything, grown government, they're still running deficits. How are you running deficit when you're getting, just look at every single gas station. Like, every single gas station takes in probably $10,000 on one shift of people buying lottery tickets. And you multiply that across the province and the country. I always say, like, the gambling is a voluntary tax because the odds are so astronomical. But if you want to give some money to the government and, take your chances on a 1 in a billion chance, then go for it. Don't spend your money that you're buying food for your kids. But I don't see anything intrinsically evil in it or anything. But it is a voluntary tax. That's the bottom line. But it all goes in the government's hands, and then how come they squander it? And by the way, during all the lockdowns and all that, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve because we don't overwhelm hospitals, and all the billions of dollars, they're still doing it. $1 billion for a school lunch program, a national or something Trudeau announced, I think. And it's like, Like, if you're conservative minded, you're not in favor of that. Like a conservative minded person would be like, stop taxing us so much so that parents can afford to feed their children. Not, yeah, that's a good idea, because people can't afford food, so we're gonna feed the children in the schools. And it's only for those who go to the government schools anyway. So it's like, no, it's not a solution. Making people more dependent on government, that's pathetic. And in Canada, we're the worst at that. We always want the government to fix our problems. And people don't seem to understand there's only one taxpayer. It all comes from us. As the government grows, the number one growth in employment, new jobs, is government. Well, what does that mean? That means the economy is being destroyed, and we're heading towards communism, and the government is buying their own bonds. What does that mean? They're buying their own assets that they're supposed to be selling to generate money. No, no, that we're going towards communism, folks. And anyway, sorry, I don't want to go off on that tangent. It is all related, though. It all is all related, because the newcomers in Canada, United States, and elsewhere, the federal governments are paying them, supporting them, putting them up in motels. We've got a huge housing problem here, which has, Justin Trudeau, he was made fun of a few years ago by saying that the budget will balance itself. Well, to kind of twist that a little bit, the housing crisis will solve itself as well, if we're right about the effects of these and the increase of heart disease and turbo cancers and all of that type of thing. And it already has had this effect in terms of reducing the population because of sterility and all sorts of other things. But anyway, call me a conspiracy theorist, I guess. But I know many of you are astute at that, and you realize that as well. But so here's the thing: we need immigration, but too much, too fast, unvetted is not good. We need people to come in at a rate where they can be assimilated, and we who are living here, we need to do our part. It's not like you have to teach people anything. A lot of it will be just osmosis if we befriend people. And I mean, obviously, there's boundaries and there's limitations, and there's, just like anyone else. You meet someone and you get to know them, and if you really end up trusting them, maybe you'll have them over to your house. But like if I was younger and living in the city, and I had this type of conversation with a newcomer, and I said, "Oh, how long you been in Canada? Have you made any Canadian friends, born friends?" And they say, "No." I said, "Well, you have now. You have now. Some friends and I were going out to dinner next week. When's your day off? I want to take you out so you can meet my friends, and it's my treat." And that's what I would suggest, that if you can do that, to do that and to spread that around. And this will thwart the agenda in this way. First of all, speaking for Canada and the United States, what I know of the United States, I believe that the open border policies and massive immigration of the Liberal government in Canada and the Democrat Party of the United States, they're doing this so that they can stay in power, because they give the newcomers, they support them, and then they vote Liberal or Democrat, Canada, United States. Okay? Well, if we befriend them, at least be neighborly, you know, then 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 we can help them understand why they should not be voting Liberal or Democrat, right? And they'll learn some of the good things from our culture, about respect and about free speech and about, our protests are not supposed to be riots or whatever. I mean, whatever it is. Again, you don't have to teach anyone else. You just befriend them. Like when I was younger and a teenager, the kids in the neighborhood, like, well, what are you doing? Let's go bowling, or let's go to a movie, or whatever. Or come on over. Come on over for some hamburgers and hot dogs, or whatever. You know what I mean? Let's get back to those good things about our culture, and let those things, rub off on the others. And then when it comes to evangelization, a lot of that is kind of osmosis too. And we don't hide our faith or anything, but let's first of all just love them for being human beings, and reminding ourselves that they're made in God's image, and God loves each and every one of them. Out here in the rural area, we all wave to each other, right? Cars going by, trucks going by. Well, mostly trucks around here, but we wave to each other even if we don't know each other. And if someone doesn't, if I'm walking on the road, and a car or truck goes by, and I wave and they don't wave back, I'm like, well, they're not from around. There's some city people, right? That's what we think. Now, to be frank with you, I'm not always in the mood. I mean, and what does it take? I'm walking my dog. What does it take to go like that, right? It's nothing. It's easy. But sometimes I don't feel like it. I don't feel like smiling. But remember during the lockdowns and all the mask nonsense, if I'm walking out on the road and I wave and smile to someone, that might be the only smile they've seen in a long, long time, right? And for some people, some individuals, they really are isolated. And unlike me, who likes the isolation, likes the solitude, a lot of people don't like that, and they feel lonely. So is it really much to just wave and say, hi, how's it going? Whatever. Because that might be for some the only little human interaction they have. So one day I'm walking down, and as I hear a car coming, it was a Jeep. It was obviously kind of a recreational type of thing, like orange or something like this. I don't know if they're local or not, but I'm like, oh, vehicle's coming. Oh, I gotta wave, and I don't know why. I just feel lazy or something. I'm like, nope. I'm gonna wave. I'm gonna do it. They didn't wave back, and I turn around as they're driving, and not to give them a dirty look or anything, but I just wanted to look at the vehicle. I've never seen that vehicle around here. It's kind of a neat vehicle. And then the thought occurred to me, there goes someone that God is madly in love with. Or there goes someone that Jesus died for. And maybe they don't know it. And in our Catholic faith, and non-Catholic Christians as well, we follow the exhortation of St. Paul to put on the mind of Christ. We, so much of wanting to grow in holiness has to do with wanting to see how God sees things, right? So if I can remember that, if I'm conscious of that every single person I meet, from wherever they come from in the world, that's someone that God loves. That's God's son or daughter. I mean, or potential, like in terms of, you want to talk strictly being baptized and being part of the family of God. But God loves each and every human being, and Jesus died for each and every one of them. And he loves them. He's as madly in love with that person who was in that Jeep who didn't wave, or that Hindu who I met from India, or the couple that I see in Costco that are speaking Chinese to each other. He's just as madly in love with them as he is with me, or he is with you. So here is a reading from the Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 5, verse 43 to 48. Jesus said to his disciples, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your heavenly Father. For he makes his sun rise on the bad and the good, and causes rain to fall on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what recompense will you have? Do not the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brothers and sisters only, what is unusual about that? Do not the pagans do the same? So be perfect, just as your heavenly Father is perfect. Jesus said, I give you a new commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. And he says here, love your enemies. And I'm going to tell you, most of the newcomers to our countries, they're not our enemies. Yes, definitely some are coming from cultures and worldviews. If we want it, some we might call a religion. And okay, but I'm going to tell you, most of them, they want to escape the bad parts of that culture, and most of them are not out to kill you, and they don't see you as your enemy. They don't see us as their enemy. But let's say they did. Let's say they did. Let's say the whole military age men thing is actually a Trojan horse, sleeper cells, waiting for the order to come from whenever, waiting for the opportune time for, well, you know, and I know that in war, soldiers have to be trained in a way to dehumanize the enemy, or sometimes it's just they're going to kill you, so you kill them. So like, and obviously, like, if someone comes after you with machine guns, it's like, and you have machine guns because you're a soldier, and yeah, it's kind of a self-defense type of thing. The soldiers are, like the elites, the powers that be, or the powers that ought not to be, like Dan Dix calls them. When they declare war and make military decisions, they don't go on the front line, and they don't send their sons and daughters on the front line either. It's so sick and pathetic, all of this. But anyway, here's the thing. Let's imagine worst case scenario. It actually is a military invasion, which I don't think it really is. Okay, but let's say, for argument's sake. Okay, but we befriend these people. We just are obedient to Jesus' command. That's what I mean. Thwart the agenda by being obedient. By obedient to who? To Christ. By loving our apparent enemies, even, and truly loving them. And look, it just kind of means be friendly, at the very least, and it means be neighborly. And if you can befriend them and show them around, and why not? Now, I'm not saying if you're a vulnerable person one way or another. I'm not saying, if you're a young woman, go out and make friends with a whole bunch of men from other cultures or something like that. I'm not saying that. But while I'm on the topic, military age men is also marrying age men. So if you are a Canadian or American and guy, and for whatever reason you've been a little bit shy about asking, a woman that you have an interest in out, to ask on a date or something, yeah, pull up your socks, get some confidence, overcome your shyness, and go and ask them out. Because some of these new guys coming in, they're not going to be so shy. Some of them come from countries where, there's a way more men than women, and they're going to come around here, and they're going to be a little bit more forward than you might be, and they'll be saying, "Wow, you're really pretty. Your boyfriend's a lucky man," and they're going to be like, "I don't have a boyfriend," and they'll be like, "Okay, great. Let's go for a coffee or whatever." So anyway, here. I'm not saying like put yourself in a vulnerable position. Do whatever you're capable of, but let's start at least by being friendly with people. But if you can become friends with newcomers, it's just obeying what our Lord has said, and even in the Old Testament, to when they talk about the aliens, like the non-Jews, and remember that you were an alien in Egypt, and and the golden rule and all that stuff, eh? And why is this thwarting the agenda? Because because the agenda is that we all be at each other's throats, be against each other, uh, be fearful of each other, resent each other, cancel culture. And I deal with that. Like a good number of people reach out to me, are dealing with trust issues because someone said this, someone did, and even people call to me because they follow certain priests online, and then, oh, this priest said this, and it like crushes them. And I'm like, okay, well, like, basically, you're still looking for Jesus. You saw this priest, and it could apply to me too. Or say, oh, I'm an online person, and you like what I say, but then someday I say something you don't like. And because we live in this wider culture, which is cancel culture, it's like, that's it. I'm canceling the scripture. I'm not going to listen to Father Anthony anymore. And I'm like, well, like, just like, calm down, folks, okay, maybe you meet someone and they're not trustworthy in a certain area. They let you down or whatever. That's fine. But that doesn't mean you can't trust them in other areas. Okay? So, um, so to whatever way we can, let's be a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more welcoming, and if we can, let's bring whoever we can into our circle of friends, and make new friends. And then, if the call comes, now is the time, it's time to for the sleeper cells to wake up and do this, that, or the other thing. They're gonna be like, "But that guy's not my enemy. He's my friend. He showed me around. He brought me food. He was there when, to look after whatever my whatever problems people end up having, right? They were kind to me, kind to my wife, or kind to my husband, or something like that. So let's make these, so-called enemies. If you're afraid of that, if you believe the narrative, then let's make them our friends, and that will thwart the agenda. And to me, it's the only way that future generations are going to have a chance at growing up with the good things that I grew up in with. It's the only way of saving Canada, is the way I can see it, is by helping these people adopt the good Canadian values. And then from there, they can let go of the bad things from their culture, and guess what? They can bring some of the good things from their culture here, and we have a few things to learn from them as well, because some of them, they're coming from cultures where they would never dream of putting their parents or grandparents into a nursing home, but this is the norm here. My own dad went into a nursing home, okay, and my mom died in a hospital. She's like maybe 6 weeks in a hospital, you know. And I mean, part of that is because of our low birth rate and small families, so it's very hard to support one another. But many of these people, they'll live in a household, and there's 3 generations in one house, and 3 generations. But we've grown accustomed to, like, everyone has to have their own bedroom and bigger houses, and only a few people living in them. So we could learn some good things from these people, the cultures they live in, they come from as well. Okay, so that's my message there. Now, I want to say one other thing, because when I talk about, okay, someone has shown themselves that they can't be trusted with this or that, but I'm saying, well, don't write them off. They can be trusted in some other area, you know. Um, the reason I started thinking about that, because I went to see an old friend of mine, a childhood friend and teenage friend. I don't see him very much. We haven't hung out or done anything social since we were about 15 or 16 years old. But we're very friendly with each other, and we do have a connection, a natural connection, and especially because we were good friends when we were boys. So every now and then, I drop in at his place of work. He works at a place. He's got he's like the general manager of a big operation. He's got like tons of people under him and stuff, tons of managers, tons of employees, and he's having a hard time getting employees. They're always hiring, and he started talking about, oh, he just got some new Canadians from the Philippines. He says they're great. We're getting another bunch of them in next week, and he just thought their attitude, their work ethic was excellent. And and then he was talking about some other things. He talked about young people these days who like immediately, even when they're applying for a job, especially the young women, and some of like the cashiers of this retail outlet would be teenagers, high school students, and college students and whatnot. He says, like it's just amazing, or I can't remember the word he used, but he says, uh, like it's so different than when we grew up. He says because immediately they tell in a job interview that they have this or that learning disability or eating disorder or whatever. And he's like, we would never do that in a job interview. If we were aware of something, we would probably we're gonna overcompensate. We're gonna compensate for it, or we're not gonna tell them because we want to be hired. And he says pretty much all of them come out and tell him that they suffer from this, that, or the other thing. And he's just amazed at that. And but I think he's a good manager because he says, everyone has their skills and not everyone can do everything. So if someone, maybe someone, he tries them on cash, and they're not very good at that. Well, maybe they can stock shelves. Oh, maybe they can push the shopping cart, or maybe they can run errands. And he finds a place for them. I don't think he ever wants to fire anybody. He finds where they can work and makes use of them there. So, like, why can't we do that? In that gospel passage I just read, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. It's not about perfectionism. It's not about having no faults. It's about having a heart big enough to love everyone. And I think that's the mind of God. It's the mind and heart of Christ. Most Sacred Heart of Jesus. Make my heart like unto thine. And that's what I recommend that we do. And if we do that, we will be thwarting the agenda. And yes, on a political level, we need to slow down the number of people coming in to, until we can get a handle of this. But, the answer isn't necessarily deportation. The answer is helping them assimilate. And the answer is loving them. The answer is being obedient to the command of Christ. So I hope that makes sense. That's my long monologue. How long have we been at this now? An hour, 14 minutes. Well, and it didn't start until a couple minutes in. But let me just check the chat here. There's not a lot of chat, I don't think. Let me just take it off top chat, put it live chat so I'm not missing anybody. So first one to weigh in, Ray Cleveland. Greetings, Father Anthony, your Minnesota friend, checking in and bidding you blessings and best tidings. Well, thank you very much, Ray. And Francesca Aruda, your blessing, Father Anthony. I will give a blessing. Sometimes I'm not sure. I think Francesca originally comes from Brazil, and but she has some hearts and some praying hands. So I think she's regular. It comes up whenever I'm on my feeds, and yeah, I think she's saying it's a blessing to see you, but I think she's also asking for a blessing. So I always remember to do that. PSK, some initials. God bless Father Anthony from Metcalfe. So that's maybe some former parishioners, or maybe not everyone I knew in Metcalfe went to St. Catherine of Siena or were practicing Catholic. So I think I know who PSK is. I think I can connect the dots and some other comments you've made before. So glad to see you're subscribed, and come visit me. I think we've talked about that. So you're overdue for a visit. That's what I tell everyone. Because some people, former parishioners and everything like that. Sometimes we're in contact with over the phone or every now and then or something, and sometimes someone will send a donation, which is very much appreciated and much needed. But it's like, hey, I've been here like for 5 years. You haven't come visit me. Like I can understand if I moved to Vancouver, but I'm only, an hour 45-minute drive away. Come on and visit. Come on up for an afternoon or whatever. Anyway, it's not a guilt trip. It's an invitation. It's an open invitation. I love you all, no matter what. Don't worry. Clayton Lee, hello, Father. Greetings from Chepstow in Bruce County. We've had nobody enter the church since I moved to our town almost 6 years ago. Yeah, exactly. And Abby or Abhai, greetings. And Yowie, one of the monitors. There's never. I don't know if maybe I'm missing some things. Let me just check something here. Let me see if I can get things on here. No, I guess that's it. Anyway, things aren't really moving on this on my laptop, so I may be frozen up. I hope everything's okay. Maybe I'm just talking to an empty screen right now. Yeah. Oh yes, when I'm talking with this old friend, I won't get into details, but it's always like, how's the wife and kids and all that type of thing. And anyway, something came up and I said, oh, that's like Jordan Peterson. That's very much like Jordan Peterson says. And my old friend, so he's my age, like 61, 62. He says, who? This is a smart man. Okay? He's no dummy. But he's never heard of Jordan Peterson, one of the most well-known Canadians of the last few years. At least for those of you who are watching these videos. He was even interviewed on EWTN, Eternal Word Television Network, because his wife came into the Catholic Church. He was interviewed like in Toronto because I think his wife came into the church this Easter Vigil, like two Saturday nights ago, and was asking if he's going to become Catholic and all that. It was a very interesting interview. I saw it on LifeSite News. But my old friend, he's never heard of Jordan Peterson. And I really, really think that most people are completely oblivious about anything going on the geopolitical scene. I really think that most people in Canada are just going about their daily business. And the last few years, they just turned on the news and said, oh, that's what we're doing now. Okay. And we'll get through this. And then, oh, we got through it. And they're completely oblivious. You and I have a glimpse of what's going on. We don't see everything. We don't know everything. But, and we're not Gnostics. What we can see is available to anybody. But most people, they're just so busy with their lives. And, they keep up on current events by turning on the news now and then. And that's it. So all that being said, it is kind of up to you and me. It is kind of up to you and me to befriend the newcomer. To be perfect as our Heavenly Father is perfect. So whether that has to do with our faith, and I realize not everyone watching this video is necessarily the Catholic faith, or is but I know a lot of you are, and a lot of you are very serious Catholics. Well, it's kind of where the rubber hits the road, And so don't get me wrong. I do think we need to limit immigration. I think we need to get a handle on this. I think, but we need to love the human beings that are in front of us. and help them. And by the way, a number of I think like there's a number of newcomers to Canada anyway that they see the writing on the wall and they're moving back. I was in IKEA a couple weeks ago, and I struck up a conversation with this fellow. Um, Again, he's from India, and we get talking, the usual thing like I was talking about. Anyway, it turns out he's awake about the geopolitical scene. He knows there's a big scam going on, and he regrets that he did this twice. He did this twice, and the reason is so he could go back to India and visit his family or whatever. He's married here. I don't think he has any children. He was lamenting. He's a professional. His wife, both him and his wife are professionals. I think she's a veterinarian, and he's an accountant or something. I can't remember what the profession is, but an educated guy. And a lot of the newcomers, they are coming into Canada and they have professions and they have advanced degrees and whatnot, and they can't get work here. Not only do they have a hard time making friends here, but they have a hard time getting jobs that they are qualified for here. And sometimes there's red tape and regulations because of that. But oh yeah, I wanted to mention that I forgot, about all this money and lotteries and all this type of thing, and 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and all the money that they're just throwing out like $1 billion here at a time. Not to mention to foreign countries and wars and all this other type of thing, right? Like, I know you all, I know what I'm talking about. How many hospitals did they build? How many hospitals could have they built with all of those? So it just adds more evidence. It's not about our health and it's not about our safety. Like, I didn't have to tell you anyway. But anyway, I'm talking to this guy and he says, look, there's no way that my wife and I are going to be able to buy a house. So we're thinking of going back to India. We're going back to a third world country. He says, yeah, this in a way the standard of living is not as good, but they have a house there. It may not be luxury like here in Canada, but they can't afford anything but rent here. And there's other YouTube channels that I think I've highlighted in the community section of this YouTube channel, where and I'll say maybe I'll leave a few links and I'll pin a comment, I guess, on this video. You can come back and check them out. So one about that interview on Rumble, and then some immigrants to Canada who are exposing that they feel taken advantage of, that they were sold a bill. Canada's economy is based on real estate dealings, and that many of the members of parliament, members of our government, they have built their wealth through being landlords and owning property. So he doesn't see any incentive for them to really bring in any real solutions on the housing crisis and to keep housing prices inflated. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true. It's a bit of speculation because many will say we're in a housing bubble and it's going to collapse. And I do think like there's going to be a lot more houses coming on the market, so supply demand will bring prices down. And the reason why is there going to be more houses on the market? Because when people have their mortgages renewed, they can't afford the mortgage payments again, so they've got to downsize. So they've got to sell and try to find a cheaper place. And obviously, more houses on the market means more supply, which means the prices will go down. So I'm not entirely convinced. And plus, I do see the government as buying up these mortgages so that they end up being the title holders of these mortgages, and or however that works, and they end up being the landlord once people can't pay pay their mortgage anymore. So it's all planned. It's all by design. Sometimes we think our politicians are inept or the governments are inept or whatever. They're incompetent. Well, yeah, maybe we were selling them a little bit short. Maybe they know exactly what they're doing, but it's all part of their agenda, the agenda, the WAF, etc. So let's thwart it. Let's thwart it in the most ingenious way, and that is being good Christians, and then they won't vote these guys back in, and they'll learn our Canadian values or American values, the good part of our values, and we'll learn from their good parts, and we'll put the bad aside. And to me, it's the only way forward. So that's the way it goes. Okay, so that's about it. Francesca is weighing in. Unfortunately, that's right. I think they're still watching the old media. People are oblivious. That I like, and I did a live stream a long time ago saying it is right and good, or proper and good, or something like that, right and proper, that the children are oblivious. And so it doesn't matter what age someone is. Some people really can't handle the truth, so that's good. Let them think that everything is getting back to normal, because for some people it's a psychological and emotional wall that goes up, involuntary, because it's too devastating. If they could see what you and I can see, they wouldn't be able to handle it. So, God bless you, and God bless me, and thanks be to God that we can see. It's better to see than not see. And but we have to put our faith in God. We have to trust in Him, lest we get all anxious. We need to be proactive with things like this, like let's love our enemies, love our neighbors. Don't see people as enemies. Just don't do that. Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid, but like, we need to love people. And when I say love, I'm not, the word love obviously in English is used in a whole bunch of different ways. What I mean is be neighborly and treat people I'm going to say treat people with respect, but not by keeping your distance from them, and treat people with dignity, their human dignity. But what shall I say? For those of you who are in the know, I don't mean infinite dignity. More problems in the church. So there you go. Anyway, Yahweh, the moderator, is saying, remember to like this video. And if you need to speak to Father, his email is FrAnthonyHannon@protonmail.com. That's absolutely right. Just send me your name and phone number. And, Yahweh and I have become friends over the last couple of years, and we've never met. And she's she lives in a different time zone, so it comes in handy sometimes for me or for her in terms of need someone to talk to. I got cousins in New Brunswick. It's only an hour behind, or they're an hour ahead of me. But a lot of times when it's like, oh, I think I can call them, it's like way too late to call them. It'd be beyond kind of common courtesy to call them so late. So yeah, I'm happy to speak with you. I do owe a couple phone calls to some people, by the way. I'm thinking of Tony in particular, who sent me a message hoping that we could connect during Easter, or at least by the octave. And the octave is passed yesterday, so I'm just getting caught up with some things. And Divine Intervention Ontario, another regular, thank you very much. Good evening, Father Anthony and everyone. So that's awesome. And like I say, Yahweh doesn't have any problems on our chat because everyone is so good. I think this channel is shadow banned, and mostly I just get people who are already subscribed to the channel, unless you share it with someone and they decide to, or maybe like the people that I meet at the gas stations from India or wherever, and I say I've got a YouTube channel. It's not just that either. There's some guys, the Canadian guy, well, one guy from Florida, another guy from Brampton who work at one of the Canadian Tire gas stations, and they play football, university football for the Carleton Ravens, and we've struck up a good rapport, and because I love football as well, and so good guys, and I wish them well. They all know I'm a priest, and how many people? The way I look at it is how many people ever have a conversation with a priest, even people who go to mass every Sunday, like a regular conversation about normal things. Not too many, and that was my experience at the hockey game as well. When I went, it was so good to meet some people, and then they know I'm a priest, so sometimes they will bring up very personal things, and might be able to help them. And I always pray, like that, because they spoke to a priest and they've never spoken to a priest before, and lightning didn't strike them or whatever. I hope that that is an indicator for them. I hope that the Lord uses that for them to help them know that God does love them, and God does have his hand on their life. We're so blessed to have our faith and the guidance that we have to, and and so many people, they don't know. I remember when I was studying philosophy and moral philosophy, talking to some of the guys who were practicing Catholics, also studying in the hopes of going to the seminary. And a couple of them, I'm thinking right now, are priests right now. And I remember saying to them in moral philosophy, well, for a lot of these things, we're so blessed because we know in certain issues what is the right answer. We just have to explain why. But for so many others, they don't have the guidance of the teachings of the church and of 2,000 years of good scholarly and faithful theologians and philosophers. So we're just very blessed, and so there you go. Divine Intervention Ontario, I so much appreciate your mass today for the Solemnity of the Annunciation. Gratefully shared it with our group. God bless. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's the first time I've done a live stream of my masses. I've never even recorded one of my masses. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did back in 2008. No, 2007. 2007, when I went into one of the government-run Catholic high schools, so-called Catholic high schools. I was an associate pastor and was assigned to go and offer the mass in the school. And since I was so tired of being maligned, I brought someone in to video the whole thing, just so I have proof that, and that's a whole other story, and maybe another video. Maybe I should share some clips on that. But I kind of have a gentleman's agreement with the principal not to share that widely. But I always have it kind of in my back pocket. I always have it kind of in my poker hand, because basically, I mean, I embarrass the teachers and the system, and they deserve embarrassment because they don't pass on anything of substance regarding our Catholic faith in these so-called Catholic schools. But anyway, no, I've never even videotaped myself to see whatever, and but mostly because I when I offer the mass, I just want to pray. But today was just an opportunity with the eclipse. Just to me, the symbolism of when Christ was crucified and a darkness came over the whole world, the symbolism, like for the holy sacrifice of the mass, was just like too good to turn up. And I just didn't want to videotape something like the mass for an hour and then take like 12 hours to upload. Let's just do a live stream. And it kind of helps me because I knew there were people watching live. So, the only other corporal being, I'll say, that was in the chapel with me was my dog Vicar, and you could probably hear a little bit of him, scratching himself or something during the mass. But it helped me just like on a live stream here, I know there are people listening to me, and obviously I got a bit of the gift of the gab that can talk for an hour and a half. But some of my live streams over 2 hours, but I hope that you find it useful. And my rationale with this, that I'm hopefully not wasting people's time, besides the good feedback that I get, and people don't have to watch it, but you can also, while you're doing some other things, maybe washing dishes or something, you can always listen to it. You don't have to be watching. But I'm very glad that there was a number of people. I think over 200 people have tuned in, at least for a little bit of that mass. And but I just want to pray when I don't want to be like too self-conscious. So that's why I don't. That's the first live stream. Will I do another live stream mass? I mean, I don't know. It was just kind of neat if you watch that video, because I turned it on about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. I started the live stream, maybe 5 after, 10 after, something like that. And then I went upstairs to vest. My album, my chasubles and everything are upstairs in a closet. So it takes me a little while to vest and say the preparatory prayers and stuff like that. So when I was coming downstairs, it was in kind of maximum eclipse mode where I am. So the basement window there, if you go to that live stream, you'll see at the beginning there's light coming through the window. But when I walk into the chapel and ring the bell to start the mass, it's black. And so at least I got in at that time, and of course by the end of the mass, the light was coming through, and I could see the Roman Missal for mass, no problem. It was a little bit difficult for me to read the readings and the gospel just with those two glass candles. But anyway, we made it through, and many graces come from that. Anyone who's watched that mass. Yahweh, I honestly don't know where I'd be if I didn't have the love and support of my parish priests, friends, my godmother, and Catholic faith community these 30 years. She's a convert. Yeah, let's be grateful. Okay, so what else is going on here? Do we have comments on this video yet? Let me just check something, and then I guess I better sign off. Well, this is maybe on another video. Let me just check what's going on here. Oh, I left a comment 8 months ago. 8 months ago on Dr. Berg's YouTube channel. And I like Dr. Berg, even though he's a Scientologist and stuff like that. I'm not going to follow his wacky ideas. I don't think he's sharing any wacky ideas on. And the funny thing is, as far as Scientologists go, and no, stay away from Scientology, okay? But I realize I have some things in common with them, in the sense of not trusting pharmaceuticals. Yeah, I don't trust pharmaceutical companies. So I left, and people are weighing in trying to defend Dr. Berg. I didn't even give a criticism. I just kind of giving a heads up, kind of showing that Dr. Berg has he's evolved. He we're always learning. And so someone leaves a comment defending him, as if I was criticizing him or something. And yeah, anyway, I think it's so funny. It's just so funny. It's people have people have false gods, idols, right? And please, and us priests, That's why, like I said earlier in this live stream, calling me up, people calling me up, and it's not just one person. It happens over and over with several different people and new people. It's like, this priest said this or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, okay, but they're not God. Well, a priest should be like this? Okay, well, he should know better. Okay, there's should and there's is. No matter what it is, no matter who we listen to, we can't turn our brains off. But don't put people on pedestals and then cancel them because they say something wrong. But it's the problem is, it's like people are still looking for Jesus in another human being. So it's like, I found him finally, and it's just mostly just feeding our confirmation bias, echo chamber, all that type of thing. And then, oh, they said something I don't disagree with, or something I don't do, and they said you have to do this, and they're crushed. Why are you crushed? It's like, I've got one of the videos that people keep coming up on the search engine over and over. Like, if I don't do a video for a long time, and and I'm just getting, is the video I did, Can a Catholic Practice Yoga? And in that video, I simply say no, because it's a Hindu thing. You're Catholic. Don't do Hindu things. Do Catholic things, right? And that's all I say. I don't go into any more depth. I think I leave a link to some others who go into depth of other things about it. But I'm just saying, like, don't misappropriate Hinduism. It's not fair to them. I don't like it if someone would misappropriate something from Catholicism, right, and misuse it. I would find that sacrilegious. So don't do that to the Hindus or whatever. And so, oh, well, but Hindus don't care. Well, some do, and some don't. Well, a lot of Catholics wouldn't care if people do whatever with rosary beads, and think, oh, that's good. Well, I don't think it's good, or what sacrilegious things, right? Don't imitate the Mass if you're not a Catholic priest. You're not confecting the Eucharist. If you're not an ordained priest, you're not it's still bread. But if you're a Catholic priest, it's now the body of Christ. But that was my message with that. But it's always so funny because there's still like 94% thumbs up compared to thumb down on that video. Like, people will come in and they're so defensive. But at the end of that video, I say, like, why are you bothered? You don't know me. What do you care what I think? If you want to practice yoga and you're Catholic and you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, like, why are you so upset with me because I don't agree with you, or I don't see it that way? Like move on. Life is short. So I just think it's kind of funny like that. But maybe some of them are like, oh, I found a Catholic priest. The same with the freedom movement stuff. I found a priest who's awake. Oh, but then he says this. Okay, I'm not going to have anything to do with him. Well, why? Like, why don't we just focus on what we have in common, and we can keep an open mind. But why would you? I don't write people off like that. Like that gospel reading. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. God wants us to love everyone, folks. But we don't look for Jesus in someone else, because then we put someone on pedestal, and then they say something or do something or fail to say something or fail to do something, and then write that person off. So, yeah. Sometimes I wonder when I start losing subscriptions. I think it's a YouTube thing, but I start losing subscribers. I'm thinking, yeah, they saw a video, they didn't like this, they've had enough of me, and I get, it's fine. Like, that's free. Anyone can do that. But okay, let's see. 3 p.m. darkness into light. Home that I love. Hey, there's a new commenter. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's exactly it. Hey, Helen. Hi, Father Anthony. Okay, good. Bigoche. It's the all or nothing mentality. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's long enough. It's 20 after 11. I still have to pray or want to pray my evening prayer, my vespers, and of course night prayer. And I'm very blessed to be doing what I'm doing. That I'm not in a parish, I can have a flexible schedule. And yeah, I think on my agenda tomorrow will be to try to reach out to some people that I haven't called, and including some family members. Like I know, like all during the Easter season, right up to Pentecost, I'm going to be calling people and saying Happy Easter. And some will say like it's a little late, don't you think? Oh no, it's still Easter season. But there's no way in the world that a priest, even a priest doing what I'm doing, not in a parish, is able to call the people to wish Happy Easter on Easter Sunday. It's just physically impossible. And by the way, it is on my mind and my conscience. I have a guilty conscience, because so many of you have given donations. There's I'm still like a shortfall every month. I don't, if you have any ideas or whatever, but I'm also like working on some ideas to try to get some more monthly supporters. And I mean, because I have to pay the bills, and I do want to get completely out of debt by next summer 2025, if at all possible. And I think I have ideas of things to do, including doing some writing and whatnot. But I'm thinking of two people in particular. But if I'm not mentioning your name, please don't think I'm neglecting you either. But for a long time, I've been thinking of, because when I made an appeal once, Joe and is one, and Gerard is another, and who gave, I think, a very, very significant donation. And someone also gave me $100 donation during Lent, said Happy Lent. And your name is slipping my mind right now, because I could look it up here, but I'm very grateful for you for all the support, because I can't, I'm not the big organization or whatever, but and I'm just me, and I'm not good at administration stuff. But let me see if I can. I don't want to really start naming names, because then I'm going to miss a lot of people. And there's people who have been giving for 5 years even, and like $25 a month or something. And this here, does this one say, have a blessed life, Gloria, thank you, Gloria. But there's others who's given through e-transfer and whatnot. And just know that I know when you give, and you're always in my prayers, and I hope that's worth something. And because the other side of it is, I start thinking, like, I want gifts to be free gifts, right? And I hope that people are good, that you'll get your thank you in heaven. Please God, you get your reward in heaven. Even if you have a cup of water to one of these little. As a matter of fact, when I was at that hockey game, I'm waiting for the plate end to go down to the seats. They were very good seats, and I'm standing, right beside like box seats, like suites, and it costs a lot of money. And they get like free food and stuff like that. There's all part of the package. And this guy says, "Want some popcorn, Father?" He's a young guy, like 28, 30 years old or something like that. "You want some popcorn, Father?" And I'm like, "Hey, yeah, well, not right now." It was a Friday after all, and I'm, trying to cut down on carbohydrates. But we get talking. His name is Justin. I remember his name in case you tune into this. And he tells me he's Anglican, and I tell him what I'm doing, and he says, "Oh, a friend's girlfriend lives up in Sharper Lake," so that's one of the closer towns that people might know kind of where I am. It's still like half an hour away from me, but oh yeah, is she here? No, she's not here and stuff. We had a conversation. I said, listen, I'm going to come back for your to get your popcorn, because Jesus said, if you give even a cup of water to one of these little ones on my account, you will not lose your reward. And I want you to get your reward. So I'm coming back for some popcorn. And I did. Like after the second intermission or third period or something, I went and got some popcorn. And after I bought a $5.50 bottle of water, which I found out I could have brought my own water in anyway. But it was part of the ticket actually that was gifted, so it didn't really cost me anything. But yeah, I mean, so I hope anyone who's contributed know that I am appreciative. I'm terrible at, and I'm not trying to excuse myself or say this is my thank you or whatever. It's really on my heart. I really want to reach out to you, and many of you, you know, you do, and I realize that people are maybe shy or want to respect me, so they whatever. But if any of you want to reach out to me, I'm always, you know, I'm always happy to talk to any supporters. And some of you have obviously have never met in person, and I hope one day we can meet. And you know, you can some of you are very far away, and some of you are closer, but I'm always open to visitors. And you know, I've got a prayer cabin in the woods, and with a heater, and I've got all you know, I've got everything set up for visitors so that I can still have my solitude. And like I'm saying, this is, if you want to visit me even for a couple of days, you know, I don't have too many rules, right? No booze, no dope, and no fags. That's my rules. But also respect if anyone is here and they want to be here for a number of days in silence, to just respect anyone else who is here and not, not invade their space. I mean, here I do this whole video saying, last half of this video saying, Canadians, like, stop respecting people's space by leaving them alone, like start engaging with people. But here, I hope you understand, the whole purpose of this is to allow people to get quiet and be inspired to do something beautiful with their life, or just or maybe make some change in their life, to hear a prompting of the Holy Spirit or their guardian angel, to maybe do something, but also just to get some rest, to get your batteries recharged, like, especially guys need to get away for a day or two, and then they'll go back and just ready to just love their wife and kids like never before, and get unplugged and undrugged. I say, come on out here and get unplugged and undrugged and get some rest and hear the birds. And it's a great time right now, by the way, because the bugs have not really multiplied. There's not, I mean, I see the odd mosquito and some no-see-ums, the tiny little kind of black fly type of things, but they're not biting right now. And there's no leaves on the trees. It's great weather, temperature wise, and you hardly would even need the heater in the prayer cabin. And anyway, there you go. Okay, I know some others left some chat here. I'll take a look and then I'll give you a final blessing, if that's okay. Because like I say, now it's 11:30, and I want to do my prayers. Okay. Divine Information, good Information Ontario. Good night, everyone. Sacred Heart of Jesus, the intercession, Immaculate Mary, pray for us. Amen. Good night to our wake friends and Father. Good. How can I get in touch with you? Look in the description of this video. Let me just double check. My email address is right there. So send me an email with your full name and phone number so I know you're real. And I can phone you. If you're in the United States or Canada, I can phone you. Otherwise, we can have email conversations, or we can get set up on Element, which is a encrypted end-to-end video or phone or text. Okay. Thanks for anyone who's here, anyone who watched this later. If any of these live streams, they're long, you know, just you can always watch them later. I'll check that later and play them back at you know, maybe 1.5 speed or something. I don't think I talk that fast. I think you probably get the gist of it. And I hope that anything that I say is helpful. Anything that might have been from you, Lord, stir up the Holy Spirit and help people, remind if there's any of help. And if it's just from me, or if it's not helpful to them, let them forget it. That's kind of my little prayer. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless each and every one of you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Go in peace, live in the truth, live free, and love one another, right? Love one another. Just let us be obedient to Christ's command, and let's thwart the agendas.